Sorry, I'm just starting the recording. I mean, we don't have to, start immediately, but I just wanted to make sure that I start the recording going. Good then. I am going to go on ahead and get started. 1 second. Jumbo, everyone. I am so glad to be back, and I'm so glad to have you back with me here on Cross-Pollinating Justice, where DEI experts share their best tips for both corporate and family DEI efforts. Today, I am so excited to be interviewing Mirna Mejia. She is a professional with a social justice and equity focus. She builds connections and she has a passion for uplifting others. This promises to be a great conversation, and I can't wait to jump in. Welcome, Mirna.
Thank you so much, Mija. I'm so happy to be here with you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and with your listeners and viewers today. I'm so excited for our conversation.
All right, thank you. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So, I am an early childhood professional. I've been working within early childhood education for the last 7.5 years, primarily helping to support early childcare providers in providing and giving them resources for quality childhood education, which also includes working to give them resources and knowledge around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I've actually been doing the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging way back since I went to college for my master's degree. I have a master's degree in education with an emphasis in multicultural counseling. And that was really I think, the beginning of my professional journey in DEIB work. The program was meant to help prepare um, diverse students to be multicultural counselors. And so I started from there, and I gravitated a little bit away from the counseling component, and I actually ended up in higher education, where I had a lot of experience in higher education, uh, uh, what higher education environments where I was working with students and families as advocates to really help them to take advantage of the opportunities that were available to them, to really help students to know that they had a place within higher ed and to seek out those support services that were intended to uh, help them succeed while they were going to school. And after that, I had a transition from California to Nevada, where I continued doing some of that work within higher education, but then had the opportunity to work as the education director for the Anti-Defamation League. And in that position, I really was able to focus on doing anti-bias education work. We also did bullying prevention programs throughout K through 20. So I was working across the state to create and to develop programs surrounding anti-bias education and bullying prevention. And it was around that time that I began to get opportunities to do more of this work kind of on my own. And so I participated with organizations and groups that uh, had a social justice focus, who really wanted to continue to expand information and education around equity and diversity. And so I really involved myself in those opportunities and just continue to grow both in my knowledge and in my skills. I was also shortly thereafter my time at Anti-Defamation League, I began teaching ethnic studies at what was then Nevada State College. And I had the opportunity to do that for multiple semesters. And that was such a joy to be able to work with students and to be a part of their learning journey. Many of them, it being their first time that they had ever taken a course like that, where they were learning about issues of race and racism and oppression and the experiences of our groups here in the US. And so that was really rewarding for me. And I believe that it also served as growth opportunities for me as well, as much as it did for the students. And since then, I've been involved in this work. I've been part of the organization Embrace Race, which has as its goal to be able to work with parents and caregivers of children to help get the resources that they get, the skills that they need, and also provide resources to help our children begin to learn and understand about differences, right? And being able to talk to our children and to create those spaces that they need so that they can go ahead and express themselves and ask questions and, you know, be allowed to be inquisitive and to wonder about the world that they see themselves in, right? And to do so in a way that is going to help them to begin to learn about acceptance and about differences being valued for everybody in our world.
Wow, thank you. That is a really interesting and cool career trajectory. And you said so many things. I was taking notes because I want to ask about all these different sort of parts of your experience.
Sure.
But I want to start because the way that I found out about Mirna, y'all, is she has been consulting at a school that's very near and dear to my heart. Helping them with their anti-bias curriculum and just making sure that all of the kids feel supported and feel like they belong at the school. And, she's doing it with our very youngest kids. So, with that said, I would like to talk to you a little bit about early childhood DEIB because, a lot of people, they always ask, what age should I start talking about this? Isn't 4 too young? Isn't 3 too young? I would love to hear your take on that so that my listeners can understand your view.
Sure. And thank you for that question. It's so important. So, as I began to do my own learning and understanding, children notice differences very early on, Mija. I mean, I think research says that children begin to notice differences as early as 3 years of age. And so when parents are starting to wonder about like, when should I start teaching my kids, about this? When should I expose them? Aren't they a little bit too young? Are they really going to understand what I'm telling them? Children will notice others like them, unlike them, right? And so it is so important for us to be able to provide that space, like I said earlier, and to honor that they are going to be curious and they're going to be wondering about their world and the people in it. And they may have questions about, mommy, why is that person's skin color this way? Or why is their hair like that? Why do they eat those kinds of foods? And we as the parents, as the caregivers, right, as the role models, and we have to remember that as parents, for those that are parents or for those that are in a position of being a caregiver to a child, we are children's first teachers. We're their first teachers. And so they're going to be learning from us. And so I always think it's so important for parents and caregivers to understand that we need to be able to and prepared to create that space for them to ask those questions, to allow them to wonder out loud, to not shush them or to not try to quiet them when they say something that they are expressing in the capacity that they're able to at that age, right? And so it's not so much for me about at what age should we do this, but it's about taking a stance of making it intentional that we are exposing children to differences from the very beginning. And this could look as simple as introducing children's books with diverse stories in the home as you begin to create their library, maybe even before they're born, right? Maybe we have books that reflect that might be bilingual, books that reflect different cultures as well as their culture. So we can do things like that, little things like that, like I said, even before they're born, so that as they begin to grow, they will have these resources already available to them, and for them, it'll be something as natural as it be these books and resources being part of their toys, right? Or their things that they have accessible to them in the home, so that they will always be provided to them. So it's not so much about at what age, as much as making it intentional. Let's do it from the very beginning. And we may not know, but there's a lot of resources that we can use to help us to begin to seek out these resources that we can provide and obtain for our children, so that we can start on that journey.
Now, you are speaking to my heart when you say
Abs-
children's books, right? I'm like, yeah.
Absolutely.
But now, so what do we say though to parents who are saying, listen, I know I got the books, but I'm scared, I'm nervous, right? Like, so, there's this study where the researchers had like white parents who were identified as liberal or moderates read books with kids of color in it to their white kids, and their children would ask questions about the skin color, and the parents were just like deer in headlights. I don't know. Can we talk about something else? Would you like a snack?
Mhm.
Right? So, how do you help parents who have the best of intentions get past that paralysis, get past that fear to answer their kids' questions?
Sure. Oh, and that's so valid, right? That's so valid. And I want to acknowledge and recognize that for many parents and for many caregivers, there is that fear because maybe they believe that they won't know how to answer children's questions. First and foremost, I want to say it's okay to say I don't know. It is okay to say, I don't know. And it's okay to say, you know what? I'm not sure about that either. But why don't we find out together? Right?
Yes.
You're not expected to know everything. You're on your own learning journey as well. And you have to honor that. You have to honor that. But I think that if you are going to stay in that space of paralysis, and not find ways to be able to grow out of it, then that would be concerning right there, right? That's the word I'm
Speak
going to
it.
use. that
Yes.
that would be
Yes.
concerning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great that you recognize that you feel a little nervous. It's great that you recognize that, "Hey, you know what, I don't know how I'm going to answer these questions." That's absolutely okay. You can use that as your starting point. You
That's
can
right.
use that as your starting point for your own journey in learning about race, in learning about social justice, in
Mhm.
learning about racism, right?
Yeah.
You can use that as a starting point. So it's great if that's your starting point. It doesn't mean you have to stay there. And I would hope that you
Yes.
wouldn't, right? I would hope that you wouldn't. I would hope that you would share with your child or any other child that you have the opportunity to work with, and say, yeah, you know what? I don't know about that right now. And then take the steps to inform yourself, right?
Mhm.
You begin to do the reading, you begin to do the research, seek out individuals who may also be on their own learning journey. Maybe seek out groups within your school community, even, right? You brought up Primavera, Mija, and they are doing such an awesome job with their
Yep.
anti-bias education and curriculum. You can go to one of the teachers and or someone within the community that may also be in the same process, in the same journey, and talk to them. Ask for resources. There's also plenty of online resources that you can search, websites also that are doing the work and that are making it possible for this information to be readily available to everyone. We just have to do a little bit of the legwork sometimes in obtaining it. With your program and with your wealth of knowledge, you're a resource as well, right? And so again, it's important for us to, if the first step is, I don't know what to do, then start researching, start doing a little bit of research and see what resources that you can find that are going to be something that you can work with and that will be at your level that you can use to begin that learning journey of your own, so that when the child does begin to ask questions, you won't freeze and panic, but that you will be able to say, oh, this is because of this, right? And to be able to begin to provide some of the answers that the child is seeking.
That's so helpful. Thank you. And, you tell me if you think that this makes sense. But one thing that I always think that the gift that we give our children when we say, I don't know, is massive because we don't have to know everything at first jump. And we can sort of model to our kids growth and learning and lifelong learning. We just don't know every single thing,
For
right?
sure, for sure. And as parents, right? I'm a parent myself, and I'll tell you right now that I think the pressure is always that we're supposed to know everything. We're
Right.
supposed to have all the answers. But how graceful is it when we can say to our children, actually, I don't know the answer to that, but why don't we find out together? Or, but you know what? But I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out, and then I'm going to get back to you. Or the next time that we read, we're going to go ahead and figure it out together. How empowering is that to the child too, that they now know that that's an okay answer, that that's a
Yeah.
valid answer, right? And it's so important that we can model that for our children as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thank you so much for that. And folks, you can always ask me. That's just my fun. This is what I do for a living. I am happy to serve as a resource for anyone who has questions. So now I'm going to jump forward because I wasn't fully aware of your college counseling work. And so I would love to hear how you engage with students of color or students who are first generation who don't have college necessarily going back 3, 4, 5 generations in their families. How do you engage with them to let them know college is for you and here are resources and you can be empowered to get this degree too if you want to?
Thank you so much for that question. It's actually one that's very important to me as a first generation college student in this country, Misha. I
Mhm.
came to this country when I was 7 years of age from Central America, and
Oh,
I
we
grew
have to know what country now. Hold on.
up. I was born in El Salvador.
All right.
Born in El
Great, great.
Salvador,
Cool, cool.
yes.
El Salvador.
And
Okay.
my family migrated here, and I grew up in Southern California from the age of 7 and went through the education system here in California. And very early on, I knew education was important. I can't tell you how I knew, but I had the opportunity to have individuals around me that recognized something within me and provided chances for me to get involved with pre-college programs as early as middle school. And so from then on through high school, I knew that college was in my future, and I knew that I was going to go to college after I graduated from high school. I was grateful to have the support of my family in those goals. And then when I graduated with my undergraduate degree, I went to work for TRIO programs. And TRIO programs are federally funded programs that are intended to help provide opportunities for underserved first generation communities so that they can obtain a college education, so that they can prepare and then obtain a college education after high school. And so these programs that I worked with students in middle school and in high school. And we not only worked with the students, but we worked with the parents as well. We worked with the families. So this was an all-encompassing program where we went in and we talked to students about opportunities to attend college. And we're not talking just about four-year schools, but we're talking about community college opportunities as well, opportunities to obtain certificate programs, technical and vocational programs that they can also gain access to in higher ed. And so I was specifically and personally working with students of color, first generation, other students and families that reminded me of my own, right, that had come to this country, or maybe they were first generation, but they had no one in their family who had attended college before them. So they had no idea about the college application process, about the different choices that students have for the type of institution that they want to attend. They had no idea about financial aid or the financial aid application, scholarships. And so in my role, I had the opportunity to talk to students and families about all of this. And it was really rewarding for me to be able to work in a very primarily Latino community here in Southern California that I got to service through this position that I had when I worked at the community college. And, a lot of the times it was really informing parents who didn't know. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, parents and families are not going to take advantage of opportunities afforded to them if they don't know about it. So
Of course.
the first goal was we need to talk to parents and students about this. We need to let them know this is for them. We need to let them know about all of the wonderful opportunities that they can access if they so choose. Mija, part of the challenges in doing this work, I did it for so many years, was sharing with parents that the opportunities for their children could be greater with that college education, with that college degree. Many of the families that I talked to, they had plans for their children after high school, but it did not involve going to college. It involved getting a job because they were expected to help support the family.
Right.
And so many of our students were in those positions. And so being mindful and being respectful, of their values and of those plans that they had for their children, while also sharing these opportunities with them and letting them know that these opportunities are accessible and they're there should you choose to, should your student choose to access those, and then giving them the resources, right, to
That's
be able to do so. Talking to them and um, letting the student know about scholarships and how do you apply for scholarships. You know what? Even if you don't think that you're going to go to college, apply for financial aid. Let's do the financial aid application together. Oh, you know what? 4 years not good for you, but the community college has these certificate programs as well. And even if you're just planning on going to work right after high school, even if you did a certificate program, you would still possibly end up with a job that pays you even more simply because of that certificate. And so again, for me, it was so important to again be respectful, meet families where they were, and just serve as an advocate and a resource of information and tools so that they could be informed. Because right, if once you know, then you can do something about it. You know that it's there for you. And so it was that time that I worked within higher education was a significant part of my life and very rewarding. And within all of that, there was there was that notion of equity, right?
yes.
That no, because again, who's going to college after graduation from high school? Which groups tend to access college more so, right? And so, that was really important to me too, especially because of my own experiences, because I had been first generation, because I had graduated college. So I saw myself, again, as a role model too in my own community. And to
That's right.
say, my family and your family, we have similar experiences. And I was able to do it too. And you can also if you want to.
That's so excellent for them to be able to look at you and say, you know what, Miss Mirna did it. Maybe I can do it too. It's
I
really important, right?
Absolutely. Again, I really enjoyed doing that work too because, like I said, I worked in a community it was my community, and it looked very much like me and my family did. For them to be able to see that, right? This is somebody else reflecting their reality,
Mhm.
reflecting their experiences. And this is something that's so key too when we're talking to our children and we're creating opportunities for them to learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, right? And it's that whole notion of they need to also see how they're reflected in their world.
Yes,
right? They need to be able to
representation
see
matters,
themselves.
right?
Representation matters, right? And so when we were referring to, those books, that's an important, crucial step, is that the stories that you're getting, the books that you're, getting for your children, that they include stories um, that they can use. As the concept is called windows and mirrors, right? Windows so that they can look out into the world and learn about their world, and mirrors so that they can see themselves reflected in those stories, and see that they are valued and that there is a place for them in our world.
That's right. Now I have to ask you, because you have worked so hard in DEIB for little kids, for medium kids, and for grown up kids, right? Going to college. How do you protect your heart and your mindset in this time of what really feels like backlash, trying to pull opportunities for college away from underserved kids, trying to pull books out of the classroom, pull history out of the classroom? How do you protect your mindset and stay motivated to keep going day after day after day?
So one of the things that I do, which is easier said than done, is I try not to let the chatter get to me.
Yes.
I try not to let let the chatter get to me, because if I do, then I begin to feel that weight, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
wow, this is discouraging, and it's easy to get discouraged.
Mhm.
So I try not to let the chatter get to me. And I mean, I hear and I read the headlines, and sometimes all I can do is just shake my head. Shake my
Mhm.
head at the misinformation, shake my head at the lack of knowledge, shake my head at what sometimes feels like the lack of humanity, from so many. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you right now, my motto is that we are all more alike than we are different. And I strive to live that.
Yep.
And also that at the end of the day, Misha, this all of this here, no matter how many try to frame it with all of these buzzwords,
Mhm.
and talk about it as something where you need to be politically correct.
Mhm.
um at the end of the day, for me, what it boils down to really is about a decision that you need to make about what kind of person you want to be in your world. Who do you want to be?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what I focus on. Who do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? I have children that are biracial. They look to me, right? My community looks to me. My peers look to me. I have privilege. I am in a position where I am considered a leader, not just within my professional work, but in other spaces that I've been afforded. And I have responsibility to all of these people, but also to myself at the end of the day. So who do I want to be?
That's right.
You know? And so I stay focused on that. I stay focused on that. I always am mindful of the opportunity that I've been afforded, such as this one,
Mhm.
and that I have a voice,
That's right.
and that there is a bigger, um, right, that there's a bigger purpose than just me, knowing this knowledge that I have to do something with it, right? And that's more important. My message is more important than all the nonsense and the craziness that has been brought up, and that comes up when we're talking about issues of DEIB,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
really at the end of the day, it's really we each have to ask ourselves, and we each have to really come to terms with, who do I want to be in this world?
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, who do I want to be in this world? And that's the question that you can answer and it'll get you up out of bed every day. Right? That's right. It's internal.
It's
Um,
internal, exactly.
so, so I always want to leave my listeners with something they can do today, this week, to push us a little bit closer, right, to equity. So, you have worked with kids from all the ages. You've worked with parents, you've worked with teachers. what's one small step you would suggest that someone make who's listening today that they can do this week to make things a little bit better?
Sure. So I think we've already kind of touched on it, and that really is, again, being willing to take a look at yourself, right? Being wherever you are, whether you're on this side where your reaction is, ugh, we're going to talk about something else, or we're going to pretend like my child didn't just ask me this question about race. Whether you're there, whether you're in the middle because you started your learning journey, and are in the process of learning about some of these very often difficult subjects, right? Racism, white supremacy, oppression, even if it's just uh, the historical oppression that you may just be now becoming familiar with, or whether you're all the way over here at the other end of the spectrum where you are a social justice warrior, anti-racist, and I would say continue to look at yourself
Great.
and be willing to lean into that discomfort of why you're having the reactions that you're having. Be willing to explore them, get in touch with your unconscious bias. Do you get a reaction when you hear somebody speaking a different language? What's that reaction about? Do you, change sidewalks or cross sidewalks, when you see somebody of a different race coming towards you? What is that about? Begin to explore that for yourself, because that is going to give you so much knowledge about yourself and then how you need to move forward from that. If your goal is really to become a resource and knowledgeable for your own children because you want them to have a better understanding of diversity and of belonging, so that's going to help you increase your racial understanding.
Yes, thank you. And go ahead, sorry.
No, and then I was going to say, and then again, if you are this person who's already at the other end of that spectrum, just keep growing, and don't get discouraged, right? Seek out others in your community, seek out other spaces that support you in that knowledge, and that give you and create opportunities for you to continue to learn and expand even more. Like I mentioned earlier, Embrace Race, and a couple of other organizations are wonderful at creating programs for individuals that are on all ends of the whether they're new learners, whether they're in the middle or whether they're at the end, and being able to surround yourself with like-minded individuals who really want to learn and grow and continue to grow for themselves, because they really see this as something important that they want to undertake, and they want to now serve as their own resource for others in their community. So I would say that it's just take a look at yourself, be willing to check out your biases, and then keep growing and
Thank
learning.
you. And I'm gonna just go on ahead and be a little bit vulnerable here and say, I think that I'm pretty along the way on my little journey, right? I'm closer to social justice warrior than I am to total neophyte, but I have to check my biases all the time,
We all do,
right?
Mija. Yes,
Right.
yes. And you know what? It's wonderful because you have that awareness.
Hmm.
You have that awareness, right? They're called unconscious bias for a reason, right? They're not top of mind. They're not top of mind. So when we react out of them, that's when we have to pay attention. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. What just happened?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whether it's, oh, shoot, I just did that. Why did I just do that?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Or whether you get to that space where it's like, oh, this is what I want to do, but I know that I'm not going to, I know better. And I
Yes.
know that this is not going to serve me to respond and react in this way because I'm trying to move away from that. I'm trying to, be more mindful, right? I'm trying to um, exercise my cultural understanding and my cultural humility, right? So I think we all do, and I think it's good that, yeah, I don't think I know anyone that is in a space where they would say that they don't ever, that their biases never get in the way. I
Right,
don't think
right.
that that's true. It's a work in progress. And the more we do it, the more that we're vulnerable to recognizing that. I think that's a good space to be in.
Thank you. That is so helpful because I think sometimes we think we have to be perfect, particularly for your type A out there, and you have to be perfect and never make a mistake and always use the right language and always use, the
Mhm.
right ending to the words. And
Right.
sometimes you just make a mistake, or
That's right.
sometimes you do sort of jump forward with these biases that have been ingrained in you from childhood, but you can recognize that, like you said, through mindfulness,
Right.
and then be different, make a change going forward, right?
There you go. Who do you want to be?
There
Who
you
do
go.
you want to be? Who
There
who
you
do
go.
you want to be in your world?
Hmm.
Right. And to me, I know that that drives me, and hopefully it will help others too. But I think that that's another way of saying that, when you think something or when you get ready to react and you're not mindfully thinking of it and you recognize it's a bias of yours. But again, the more that you can work on that, right? The closer you get to being who you want to be in your world.
Oh, that's so right. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today. I want you to let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, what resources you may have for them, and I will also put them in the show notes. But I do want to give you an opportunity now to let people know how they can find you.
Sure. Well, I'll share my email with you. I have a personal email I can share with you so that you can provide. And then again, I would highly recommend for those that are interested in some, getting involved in some groups where they may be able to learn more and to get resources and to find those meeting spaces where they can come and feel a sense of community in this journey. Definitely check out Embrace Race. The embracerace.org is the website. What else? I know I shared a couple of others with you via email. Learning for Justice
Yeah.
is a really valuable resource that I used, especially when I was an educator. And, I loved it because they provided resources for all grade levels. And so, really good curriculum and lesson plans and resources that we could use to begin to create lessons for our students. And so I really enjoy them as well. Gosh, I don't even remember what I sent you anymore. I'm
Well, do
sorry.
you want folks to follow you on socials? Like,
Uh,
are there social media handles you want people to follow?
that would be great. Let me let me give you my social media handle that I specifically like to use to just kind of talk about some of the stuff that we're discussing right now. Give me one second. Okay, so it is understanding underscore together, and that's my Instagram handle
All right. Understanding underscore together on Instagram.
on Instagram.
That's a great handle too, by the way. That
Thank you.
is so much of what you're about, and I just love it.
Thank you. Thank you. This is really wonderful. Yeah, and they can reach out and ask questions, or if they would like resources, I'm happy to direct them to some really good worthwhile resources, like I said, that are out there to really help individuals on their racial uh learning journey.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here. Y'all keep cross-pollinating justice. Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, Misha.